Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining the LA Better Buildings Challenge July webinar. Today, we'll be joined by Jonathan Fata from Waypoint Building Solutions. They're under contract to SoCalGas to deliver a program called Connect, and he'll tell you more about that, but it's a really interesting program. A lot of value comes out of that. A couple of housekeeping notes. As usual, the webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our website, along with a PDF of the slides in case you'd like to reference those or share them with colleagues, clients. Lines will be muted just to keep things orderly, but there'll be plenty of time for questions. It's a pretty quick presentation today. It should be about 20, 25 minutes. So if you have any questions, you can type those in to the question bar on the right-hand side of the screen. And again, we'll have plenty of time for those at the end, and we'll try to make sure to get to everyone. My name is Dave Hodgins. I'm Executive Director of the LA Better Buildings Challenge. And as I mentioned, Jonathan Fata will be presenting from Waypoint Building Group today. A few quick notes about the LA Better Buildings Challenge for those that aren't familiar with the program. We're a key piece of the Mayor's Sustainable City Plan, specifically around existing buildings, looking to continue growing participation in the program. And this is really a leadership initiative for elite high-performance buildings to engage in some friendly competition, opportunities for recognition, and peer-to-peer learning, case studies, these kinds of good things. And we offer a range of services as part of a national competition. So LA is competing, as we do in reality, with other cities around the country, not just for tenants, but also to be seen as the greenest city. It's good in a lot of ways, attracting businesses to the area, and it's part of LA's brand. We offer a range of services. I won't go into depth on this today, but one of those is connecting folks with resources. So today's webinar is a good example of that, where we're working with our partners, Waypoint, to make sure that everyone's aware of the services that are available through their group, funded by SoCalGas. Pretty easy to get involved with the challenge. The first step is to get in touch with us. We'll review how the building's looking relative to the 2020 goals, and help address any issues with benchmarking. That is now really no longer voluntary with the city ordinance. Commercial buildings over 100,000 feet this year need to benchmark, so we can assist through that process and then support an action plan. And if part of that includes gas, I would introduce you to Jonathan Fata. So with that, I will hand it over to him, and hopefully he's able to take control of the slides here and talk through his program. All right, Jonathan, you should have the slides now.
All right, thanks so much, Dave. And let's see, should be sharing my screen. Can you see that, Dave? And I'm assuming everyone else can, if you can see it.
Yes, I do.
All right, fantastic. Well, Dave, thanks so much for that introduction, and we really appreciate you all hosting us today to talk through the Connect program with my company, Waypoint and SoCalGas. I'll give a little bit of background and introduction into our team and what we've been doing. I've actually known Dave for a number of years and was aware of the great work that he'd been doing with the Better Buildings Challenge and what they've been doing in conjunction with the city of Los Angeles. And we got to talking, and it was a natural fit to bring this to the LA Better Buildings Challenge members as a resource to help meet the Better Building Challenge's goals, and it's pretty well aligned with the city of Los Angeles's goals as well. So I'll kind of start there. My name is Jonathan. I'm our program manager for this program. The Connect program is funded by Southern California Gas Company. We've been running this since late 2014. And we'll get into all the program details and what the actual benefits are for buildings to participate. So quick agenda and overview here. We're going to go over what the actual Connect program is, what that means, what's involved in it, what the approach is, what the solutions are for commercial real estate buildings, next steps for enrollment and to get support through the program, and then of course our contact information if you're interested in participating. So I'll take another step back here and just at a high level talk a little bit about utilities and a little bit about the commercial real estate industry. And maybe at surface level, they may come off as pretty diverse or divergent rather industries that, utilities are selling electricity or gas or water to the customer of theirs. But really there's a lot of similar goals for both of these stakeholders, and especially in Southern California. So looking at a company like Southern California Gas, they have energy reduction targets that are set by the state that help keep rates low, and they have goals that they're supposed to achieve, and those align well with the City of Los Angeles's goals and the Better Buildings Challenge goals. And then on the commercial real estate side of things, you've got a desire to reduce costs in buildings, which is really hits a triple bottom line, good for the residents, the tenants in the building, good for the environment, that we're creating less emissions, and good for the bottom line of the property, that the operating costs are going down. It's improving net operating income, which leads to increased asset value and all kinds of other benefits. So understanding that these two industries that have similar goals but aren't quite necessarily reaching that goal together, we developed this Connect program back in 2014, and it's a fully utility funded program that's aimed at commercial real estate buildings. This kind of tag at the top, the right CRE decision makers with the right utility programs at the right time. We'll talk a little bit about timing later too. So from the utility side of things, we're able to help foster relationships with the utilities account executives, bring in these commercial real estate outreach channels, increase market penetration, and increase energy savings to the utility through the approach that we'll talk about here shortly. And then on the commercial real estate side of things, this is a free utility funded program which offers benchmarking. I'll talk a little bit too about how, very aware of the existing buildings efficiency ordinance, but we also provide auditing, customer support, bringing that relevant and timely information on what's the status of incentives, when are they going away, when are they coming, utility navigation, and then ongoing efficiency support for those buildings. So to understand a little bit more around, the why of the program, why are we actually working with SoCalGas, understanding some of the barriers to a commercial real estate building participating in an efficiency project or going after a efficiency incentive that SoCalGas might offer. And the first of those, on the financial side, so high upfront costs, lack of financing and capital options. This may be just an initial barrier, or this may be a perceived barrier, but as we know, perception is often reality. So if we think the costs are high, we may not even be interested in looking at what those options are. On the market structure side, we're, very aware, and Waypoint's background is actually more on the commercial side of things, and we kind of learned the utility industry as we went. So having a good understanding of the different stakeholders and market actors, so owners, tenants, engineers, asset managers, investors, all may have differing motivations. And I would imagine we probably have a diverse group of folks on the line today that represent many of those stakeholder groups. And if I didn't say your title specifically, I apologize, but just the fact that there are so many different interest groups in an individual building can just inherently lead to some structural challenges. The split incentive also we find is really pervasive, and if you're not familiar with that term, it's essentially where there's a disconnect between the person or group who is benefiting from an energy efficiency improvement and the person or group that is paying for it. So in a building with a lease structure where the owner may be paying the utility bills, but the tenant's responsible for any type of upfront cost for improvements, there's a disconnect between who would actually get the savings from an efficiency perspective, or vice versa. And there's all kinds of different iterations of that. But we see the market structure and the lack of insight that the utility may have into that as a big barrier to participation in an efficiency project. The information and knowledge barrier, sometimes it's just a lack of resources. Sometimes it's actual lack of understanding of what's available there. And sometimes it's around just what are the costs and benefits to my building and the savings going to look like for our property. And we'll talk about how the program addresses all these, but I think it's important to lay out all these different barriers early on. And the physical building itself, the building life cycles may not be aligned with what a utility program life cycle looks like. The current building conditions may not be known. So, have we looked at what our boilers look like, or looked at what our hot water heaters look like? Do we know, are they functioning at a place that we should expect a high performance building to look like? So to address those, we came up with the Connect approach here. So it's a 5-step program. And these steps, we try to make it easier to understand. It's a relatively fluid approach, but it's really intended to be a concierge type service for commercial buildings to go from, I don't know anything about my portfolio or my individual building, all the way through receiving that incentive check from SoCalGas to help fund the efficiency improvements. So it has a long-term timeline that's really helps build these relationships between the utility and the commercial stakeholders. So the first part of that is identifying the actual CRE partner portfolio. So we like to say that we have partners on the commercial real estate side of things. So the first step is, if you have an individual building up to 100 buildings or more, there's really no limit on how many we can work with. It's getting all that building information together so that we can benchmark their portfolio. Second step here, like I said, I very much appreciate that many of you may have had to just comply with the existing buildings energy and water efficiency ordinance. And you might say, hey, I already had to do this. That's great. We're not asking you guys to redo that step. What we would do is just take the submission that you sent into the city and use that as a proxy really for getting an idea of what your portfolio looks like. And the idea behind that is that every building in LA was required to submit, but some of those buildings are going to be efficient and some of them are going to have a lot of opportunity for improvement. And so we want to look at the ones that are going to have the best opportunity to do step 3, which is the audit the target buildings. And also just pause here to mention, the LA Better Building Challenge in the city of LA, those are confined within the city limits of Los Angeles. And just to clarify, the SoCalGas program is available to anybody within SoCalGas territory. So even if your building receives electric service from Southern California Edison or another utility, you're still eligible to participate in the SoCalGas program. But we definitely want to focus it on LA for the purpose of this webinar, since this is a primarily an LA-centric audience. So that third stage, audit the target building. So from the benchmarking, we'll look at your portfolio of buildings. We're looking at things like past gas consumption, past spend, increases in time of spend or consumption, and then identifying which of the buildings in your portfolio are going to be the highest spenders. And if you've just got one building, we can compare that to past benchmarks we've done for other portfolios, and you can see where you perform compared to some of your peer buildings. And again, leveraging what you've already done for the city of LA, not duplicating it. So that third step, going in and actually auditing the target building. So we'll have a conversation with the property manager, with your building engineer, with the SoCalGas account executive that's assigned to your building, and schedule a time to go and do a physical walkthrough. So our team of engineers will go out, take a look at all the gas equipment, everything from a kitchen on a ground floor mixed-use building to large boilers for meeting all the heating or space heating and water heating demands of the building. From there, we take a craft and brief a business case, and then present that back to management and ownership, and then work with the building to actually process the incentive application. So kind of a high-level summary. I'll talk a little bit more here what that, going to detail each of these steps a little more. So the first piece is, really just enrolling the building. So we've got a brief enrollment form that just allows us to dedicate time and resources to working with you. Like I said, we like to partner with properties, so this is meant to be tailored to what your business needs are. So scheduling monthly check-ins with Waypoint, these aren't like a requirement, but we think it's good to touch base and understand what your needs are as they change, and maybe a building is listed for sale and we don't want to work with that anymore, or you wouldn't rather, that kind of thing in that first step. And the second piece, just getting all of that portfolio and utility data in. So we're going to need things like square footage and building age, things like that, very basic information that help us do that benchmark to find the building so that we can review and compare properties against one another. And the third step, again, just doing those actual on-site audits, getting access from the property managers to actually walk through the building and take a look at the equipment. The fourth piece, reviewing the business case for the different efficiency projects with our team. So I'll stop here a little bit because I think many of us are probably familiar with energy efficiency audits. ASHRAE level 1, 2, and 3 does a really great job of defining a really technical case for what an efficiency opportunity might look like from an energy savings perspective. And so our business cases and our audits do that, but they also take the business case piece of it and prioritize that. So we've got all the technical details to back up all the recommendations that we're making in the reports, and there is a lengthy report that anyone would be happy to read. But we also create a brief 1 to 2 page business case that a property manager or an engineer can take to their ownership and say, hey, we went out, we worked with Waypoint and SoCalGas and the Better Buildings Challenge, and we found these gas opportunities here. We've got the 30-page report if you don't believe us, but here's the 1 to 2 page summary that really says, here's what the costs are going to be, here's what the payback, here's what our IRR and a couple other financial metrics are going to look like. Oh, and also here's how much funding and incentives SoCalGas is going to give us to offset those costs, the upfront costs. Last piece here, processing the incentive application. So if you've gone through a utility incentive application process, you probably know it can be a little confusing or a little cumbersome. So not to say that it's too bad, but it can be challenging if you haven't worked through that and understanding how to submit your equipment with the baseline equipment and make sure you're getting the maximum incentive. So we take care of all of that for you. So actually filling out the application for you, making sure you have all the required documentation from invoices to your baseline conditions, getting all of that submitted to SoCalGas. And then the other piece in here is working with the building to align it with the existing capital budget cycle. So, you know, right now, many of you, if you're a property manager or an asset manager, you're probably working on capital budgets for 2018. So getting projects budgeted for future years is something we can also help with, and understanding what funding may or may not be available from an incentives perspective, so that you can make a solid business case for these and make sure they're budgeted for properly. So back to those barriers that we talked about, the 4 primary: financial, market structure, information, and physical building. So Connect is really trying to overcome these with the utility and offered incentives. So reducing your upfront costs on a project to make them more attractive from a financial perspective, developing those business cases that show that this is something that the efficiency projects that we're recommending should really compete with any investment that you're going to make in your building. And as such, we want to show those financial metrics that resonate with the, you know, whoever the stakeholders and decision makers are on your team that are actually responsible for writing those checks. The other piece here is, you know, Southern California Gas has a program called on-bill financing that we can help with, which is an interest-free program to provide funding for energy efficiency projects that you pay back on your monthly utility bill to SoCalGas. So working through all those financial barriers through Connect, you know, helps overcome that barrier. The second, on the market structure piece, is when you understand the costs and the benefits of a program, you can take a look at the lease, understand who the different stakeholders are, and align those different components with who's going to be benefiting and who's going to be paying for them. So helping with messaging around that, helping navigate the lease, and then tying all of these actual costs and benefits into the different stakeholders there. The information and knowledge, this is pretty straightforward. You know, we're actually going in, finding the opportunities for you and quantifying them. So it's really easy with the case studies that we have from past projects that you can show management or ownership on what the energy reductions, costs, and non-energy benefits are. Really make this easy to sell internally to get the projects through. And again, with the whole goal of, from the commercial side of things, we're just trying to reduce costs in the buildings and help you meet your energy reduction targets. And then the physical building, again, understanding the building life cycle and utility program life cycles, helping you understand what equipment is in your building if you don't already, and then what your options are for replacing that with efficient versions of your equipment. So some of the deliverables from the partner side. So what can you expect from us? So that benchmarking analysis, this is early on looking at how your building compares to other buildings within your own portfolio. So if you manage a series of buildings within Southern California Gas territory, we can look at all of them and compare them from a gas perspective against their peers. And if not, we can look at it on an individual basis and compare them to others that we've worked with. And this is from a gas perspective only, again, doing the target building analysis. So for the buildings that come out of that benchmark that are high opportunity, and what we mean by that is they're a high gas user, the management and ownership is going to be receptive to considering efficiency opportunities, and they're not about to be sold, those types of things. We work with our partners to identify where those high opportunity buildings are. We're not trying to blindly go in and say, hey, you know, we looked at some quantitative data and think this is the best building. It's really working collaboratively with the partners. So doing the efficiency opportunity analysis, finding those project incentives, building a financial case and a business case for ownership is all part of that target building analysis. And then the ongoing incentive support. So, you know, we of course encourage buildings to move forward with the projects that we recommend, but we also understand that it may not be the exact right moment in time to do that today. So finding, you know, is this something we can budget for next year, the year after, understanding what the incentives may look like, or if it is the right time to do it now, great, we'll help you guys complete the incentive application, get it submitted, make sure everything goes through so that you're going to get a check from SoCalGas for that incentive for the efficiency project that you've done. One thing that's not in here that we can also work with is understanding that commercial real estate industry is hyper competitive. Everybody's trying to differentiate themselves. So helping you guys find ways to promote the efficiency work that you're doing. And I think this is can be really helpful to show, leadership in this space. So helping develop business cases, those types of things that help differentiate you from your peers is something we can also help with. Connect program timeline. So really just trying to show here what the process looks like. This is an example of what a timeline could look like, but really to focus on the different Connect activities in that left-hand column. So the stakeholder info session. So we do outreach to different firms throughout the region and work with excellent groups like the Better Buildings Challenge to help get the word out about this. Doing the benchmarking, target building, audits, doing the business cases, and then getting those incentive applications. This is really dependent on how fast your firm can move or would like to move. So we can, if I get an email this afternoon from someone, we want to get started, we're ready to get started immediately. If it's, we need a couple weeks or a month, we can accommodate that timeline as well. But just so you have an understanding of really what the steps of the program are. And then the actual physical next steps are, if this is a program that sounds like it would benefit your portfolio, it aligns with your interest in the Better Buildings Challenge, and your firm is looking to reduce operating costs and energy consumption, reach out directly to myself or through Dave. Our contact information is in here in the slide deck, so that'll go out to everyone after this webinar. Work with us to get a list of those buildings in your property. So we say office here, but all commercial buildings are eligible to participate in the program. So we can, office, retail, mixed use, light industrial, all those types of properties we can work with. Complete an approval form. So it's just a actual enrollment form to get started. And then if you don't have your utility data, that's what the approval form is. So it just allows you to have SoCalGas transfer the energy data to us. Of course, all of your data is kept confidential. When I referred earlier to comparing your building against other firms and to do a peer analysis, we don't share any of those building addresses or locations, but it does show you, here's a 250,000 square foot building in SoCalGas territory. Here's how you'd compare to it. But we don't share any of the identifiable information with anybody outside of your organization. And then setting up the monthly calls to just get things rolling, getting through the benchmarking, identifying the buildings that need audits, going in, finding those opportunities, and then getting those processed to help actually reduce costs and consumption for you all. That's really where our next steps are. Again, our contact information is right here. So my name is at the top, Jonathan Fatah. I've got a great team of folks that work with me that are probably listening in on the line. Sormay Konchkov and Joseph Warner, both on our team. And we will be happy to support you guys in whatever your needs are. So I think that's my last slide. I think I've got one more here. Just any additional information, you can reach out to Sormay. I'll probably leave it on this as our last slide. But in conclusion, the SoCalGas Connect program is available to anybody within Southern California gas territory. So if you are a gas company customer, you're eligible to participate in the program. It is a free utility funded program, so there's no cost to you throughout the process at all. Thank you again to the Better Buildings Challenge for hosting us today. I think that's it for me, Dave.
Great, thanks, Jonathan. You covered a lot in a short time. That was great. And just to continue on a couple of points that he made, in City of LA, as I mentioned, there is a local benchmarking requirement. So we would work together to help make sense of the gas data, but also the electricity and water. So we'll work in close coordination if that's something that anyone's interested in some support on, and also in following up on any electric or water opportunities. So that's one of the things that's really exciting about having these complementary programs being offered in the joint territory, again, where it's DWP and also SoCalGas. We do have some questions coming in, which is great. Question about trade allies. Do you work with owners, with customers to help them select contractors to actually implement gas efficiency measures that are identified through conversations, audits that you guys are doing?
Sure, that's a great question, Dave. So where our role in this is to be, we play a little bit of what we call vendor agnostic. So if there are, for a specific equipment list, like a preferred list of vendors from SoCalGas, we can put that forward. but we're more focused on identifying the actual equipment and opportunities. So we can help evaluate vendor bids and quotes and things like that, but we're not typically referring actual companies to do the work. Our role is really to help identify the opportunities and find good bids. We can look at the actual bids and make sure that the equipment that's being recommended by a vendor is going to be incentive eligible and meets those efficiency requirements, but we don't actually recommend the vendors themselves.
Right. Yeah, I think that the question was about SoCalGas has like a database on their website of trade allies, as they call them. It's some process for qualifying this, but great. Great. And just housekeeping questions. Someone's asking for a copy of the slides. Yes, of course. We'll be sending through a PDF version as well as a link to a recording and some just high-level key takeaways from the webinar. So that will be sent through to everyone who registered and then also available on our website. Question about how would you bench, a fairly specific question about a campus-style situation where there's a steam loop. Is that something you guys have experienced with benchmarking?
So that's an interesting question. So we've worked with it on other programs. So as a company, we have experience working with the steam loops, not with SoCalGas specifically. Essentially, what you're doing in that situation is converting steam to like KBTU or therms, and then looking at the whole campus. So it does become challenging in the sense that you can't look at a building specifically, but you could compare the campus on a total square footage to other buildings and normalize it or find a ratio that what does this campus look like compared to a similar size large building or something like that. It's a little bit different than our typical approach, but I think if that is your situation and you're interested, definitely contact us and we can talk through what the specifics are of that and see how we could do that.
Okay, great. You talked about the property types and you said, this is really oriented towards commercial properties, but I'll see if I can combine two of the questions. Is there a minimum size threshold for the businesses that you would work with, buildings?
Sure, so there's not a minimum size per se. We're definitely trying to, from the gas company's perspective, we're trying to find good gas savings opportunities, but there's not a minimum size to participate. So, even if you have, a small retail strip mall or something like that, we can definitely look at those buildings and help identify opportunities. And sometimes those may be even less complex, or just maybe a water heater situation, and we can just look at that and help find the right incentive and determine what the cost and energy savings benefits are going to be for you. So no minimum size to participate.
Okay, great. And I think you talked about an example of perhaps an office with some ground floor retail. You could look both at maybe the food service uses as well as if the office building has a boiler. You could look at both of those at the same time, assuming you had access to the space, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've actually done similar situation with offices in the past. So ground floor restaurant or cafeteria, something like that, and then upstairs the boiler. That's a pretty common one for us. So we definitely have experience. Our team of engineers has done that before for this program.
Okay. And is this program restricted only to commercial accounts, as SoCalGas describes them, or could a municipal property take advantage? We got a couple of questions about that. Or school,
sure,
public school.
Sure. So the commercial is more referring to the building type. So we're more focused on, is it an office or a warehouse than is it a home or multifamily? So those are excluded. It's less on the actual type of account. So if you have a school or municipal building, we can definitely work with you guys. And if not, one of the pieces early on in there is, going through this, making sure that, from our perspective, we want folks to come away from this feeling like they got the right resources. So even if our program can't, for whatever reason, we work very closely with SoCalGas, and they have similar programs that could work with your building. In these cases, I think we'd be able to, though.
Great. Question about data access. Since you are a third-party implementer, does the customer have to provide the gas info to you, or can you request that directly from SoCalGas? I'm assuming there would be some sort of letter of authorization required.
Yep. So kind of yes to both. If the customer has the data available and they can send it to us in PDFs or Excel format, great. Otherwise, we can request it. We do have to have customer consent to do that. So whether it's the tenant or property manager, if you complete, it's called a scissor form, CISR, we can submit that on your behalf, and it just authorizes us to receive the data for your property.
Great. Okay. Any other questions? These are really good questions. Well, thank you. It looks like we have covered everything, and we can end a little bit early. So again, we will be sending around a copy of the slides and the recording. Thanks everybody for your interest, and be sure to tune in for next month's webinar. We'll be sending some announcements about that along with follow-up. And thank you to Jonathan, the Waypoint team, and SoCalGas.
All right. Thanks so much, Dave. Thanks, everyone.